Hi, folks. Bill Wilson, Wilson Combat here. And I'm here again on our Gun Guys episode with my old buddy Ken Hackathorn. And today we're going to talk about customizing Glocks, about Ken's preferred Glock modifications. Welcome, Ken.
Well, it's funny, Bill. Some year or two ago, we were talking about Glocks, and myself and some other people recommended to you guys really need to get on the Glock program. It's the most prolific handgun in the world, and whether we like it or not, it's a good tool.
Mm-hmm.
And everywhere I go, that's kind of the standard by which current self-defense handguns are measured. I've always believed that if you're going to teach a class, you should be using the tool that the students are using.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And in the private sector, if it's a governmental organization, whatever it may be, that's what I try to use. In the private sector, you kind of got to split the hairs of what do most people have. And in almost all private sector self-defense pistol classes, the majority of handguns are going to be Glocks. So hence I use them a lot. Every once in a while I'll go someplace where I know it's going to be a big 1911 crowd. And of course, I always enjoy that because I get to use my Wilson Combat 1911s. But a Glock's a fact of life. By not addressing the opportunity to modify them the way people want them, you're leaving money on the table. And I think your decision to do it is a smart move.
Well, I appreciate that, Ken. Yeah, we've got a couple of Glock 19s here. I think by pretty much all the records, that's probably Glock's best-selling model. What do you think?
For the self-defense market, I think it's a champion by a long way. And most, I'm sure you get the question, hey, I want to buy a gun for self-defense. What do I get? And realistically, it's pretty easy to say get a Glock 19 and it covers your bases. But for years, the Glock pistol has always been something that people wanted to personalize. And one of the first things for years, the Glock, for whatever reason, decided to import the guns and put those hideous plastic sights on them.
Yeah. Which
we just referred to as slot blanks until you get good sights. And I noticed that in your product, you guys have addressed it now with, I believe these are the Vickers Tactical model of the Wilson Combat sights.
That's correct.
Superb sights. You've got a U-notch rear, kind of the battle sight version of the sight. Very, very rugged sight, does a great job. Your front sight, I think you are, if I'm correct, fiber optic, gold bead, and tritium insert.
Yes, that's correct.
That kind of covers your bases.
Yeah.
Everybody I know that uses these likes them. Larry, of course, if Larry Vickers thinks it's the best sight in the world, that might be a clue. One of the best things I like about this sight, and we'll talk about triggers in a little bit, but most of us, if we're right-handers, the way you pull the trigger on a Glock, because the way it articulates, it's real easy. By the time you get to the trigger to the point where you're pressing straight back, you've moved the gun. And it's not uncommon, and myself included, if you look at the rear sight on my Glocks that I shoot, the rear sight is often a little bit to the right to compensate for moving to the left. And this sight system you have here with your torque screws that secure it actually makes it pretty easy for the end user to do it. They don't need a exotic bunch of tools and pin punches and stuff. It actually, and once you secure it down, this thing is not moving.
Yeah.
So that's a good feature. I think probably the one we all agree is really turned into magic for you is this Wilson Combat Starburst pattern laser engraving texturing. I mean, that's not only is it incredibly attractive, but it does the job. When you grab the gun, it secures the pistol, and that's what it's about.
Well, as we both know, I mean, on the polymer frame guns, when your hands are sweaty, like they are often here in Texas in the summertime, it's hard to hang on to the polymer guns unless they've got pretty aggressive texture on them.
Yeah. And we've all seen people take the wood burning kit and do their texturing. And while sometimes it's effective, sometimes it's pretty hard to look at. And it's not like this is a pretty gun to start with. When I first got my first Glock back in 1986, Pete Cocalis talked to me, you got to get one of these. And I remember taking it down to Wayne Novak, who was, of course, custom 1911 builder at the time. And I remember showing it came in that Tupperware box, remember? Yeah. And I peeled it up and took it and handed him the gun, and he looked at it and he went, oh my God. It's the only pistol I've seen that comes out of the box without pride of ownership. Because let's face it, by industry standards then, it was not a very attractive handgun.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, I said at the time, Americans will never buy this gun. Well, I was wrong because they buy them in huge numbers.
Well, that's actually one of the few things on forecasting the future on the gun industry that you've been wrong on. You've been right on so much stuff. And matter of fact, we're actually going to do a Gun Guys episode on that at some point.
Cool. Well, I've hit a few of them, that have been ground balls, but for the most part, I've been pretty lucky. But I think if you look at the things we all like, the texturing definitely, I consider it a necessity.
Mm-hmm.
For example, this gun, you've got put some serrations on the top of the slide, machined those in. Very attractive. Probably not a necessity, but boy, they sure make the gun look a lot nicer.
Yeah, classes the gun up a little bit.
Yeah, and then the other thing, you guys, most people don't know, you've been making Glock barrels for how long, roughly?
Oh, I don't know how long. Long time.
Long time. Yeah. And back in the day when people wanted to shoot lead bullets, the existing barrel and Glocks didn't often shoot lead very well. You guys came out with was it a button or broached rifle barrel?
Ours a button rifle, but it was rifling that shot lead real well.
Yeah, I mean, I know everybody that shot lead ran out and bought. You were probably the first guy to do aftermarket barrels for Glocks, weren't you?
If not the first one.
I think probably the first. And these new ones, these are stainless now, correct?
Yes.
And you got a nice crown on them. And everybody shoots them, raves about them as being, really accurate, nice performer. Do you support the case head a little bit more than in the past, or is it about the same?
No, I think we got pretty much the maximum support we can give them and still give them the feed.
So,
properly.
Yeah, the barrel feature is a real nice touch. I think one of the things that you offer, I should say, is you can use a standard trigger guard. This one's been modified, but it's got almost more of a square look. This one's been rounded, and depending upon the end user, a lot of folks just prefer this because, let's face it, not hardly anybody does this anymore.
Yeah, I've not seen anybody shoot like that in years.
No. And then if I remember correctly, you mentioned that if people want it, your guys who do Glocks actually will relieve under the trigger guard a little bit.
Yeah.
To me, most of us that shoot Glocks have got that permanent callus right there because of that corner of the frame.
From either a Glock or a Beretta.
Or Berettas are pretty bad about it too. Yeah. So I noticed both pistols. One of the things I noticed, you've got aftermarket triggers.
Yeah.
And I shot this one this morning doing some demos, and both of them are great. And obviously, after your guys do their magic, pretty impressive triggers.
Yeah, the factory trigger for some reason really wants to pinch the bottom of my trigger finger, and I just almost have to have
the way the curve comes on it. It seems to me like it almost presses my finger down so it rubs on the trigger guard
and tries to get in that void there.
Yeah, and the more flat shoe doesn't do that. I mean, our goal is always to press the trigger straight to the rear. Well, this contour and that new trigger that you're probably going to be offering in the future, that Tango Down new flat polymer trigger, is going to be a home run.
Yeah.
So, and I think you offer as accessories a lot of the Vickers Tango Down stuff if the customer wants it.
Yes.
And Larry showed me last week one of the new Vickers tactical Wilson Combat Glocks. They're built on Gen 5s.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it's a pretty cool gun.
Yeah.
And he told me you can either send your gun in to be modified or they can buy the gun new from you.
Yeah, and we're working on one with Paul Howe now. We're going to do a Paul Howe model. It'll be based on the Gen 4 guns. He prefers the 4s.
Yeah, and the price range that Larry told me that you're going to provide the gun, the complete package for, I thought was real competitive. I think you're going to sell a lot of them.
Yeah, I know it went over real well at the NRA show.
Yeah, I watched people looking at the guns, and there were a couple areas surprised me. Obviously, your 1911s always have a big crowd. But the Glocks were getting handled a lot. And I noticed the table in the center with the rifles and stuff, that a lot of the people really are paying attention to that. But the Glocks clearly were, people liked what they saw.
Yeah, that's true.
How about different calibers? I know the 9mm is the heart and soul of the Glock. Are you guys going to offer packages to other calibers too as well?
Yeah, we can do the other calibers, just basically the same
Obviously
thing.
But your barrels are all 9mm barrels.
Yeah, I don't think we're even making a 40 barrel.
Yeah.
I think 40 is on the way out anyway.
How about, obviously you make barrels for 19s and 17s. How about 34s? Is that something you're going to address? Or?
Yeah, we've got barrels, 34s also.
I know that you are not, although I tell people, I remember many, many years coming to visit you one of the first times when you in your house up in Arkansas down on the river, that inside your main entranceway. There, you had one of those like pictures mounted on the wall that
Yeah.
if you opened it up, there was a gun behind it.
Yeah.
It was a Glock 17.
Yeah. Lots of BBs.
Lots of BBs. But the bottom line is, you know, you and I are both old 1911 guys. I still feel I shoot best with a 1911, but the reality is it's a Glock world.
It's a Glock world, and you got to, you know, I think we both agree, we don't feel unarmed at all when we're carrying a Glock. I mean, you know, it might not be our first choice, but it's certainly a good choice.
I've watched you shoot one. You don't have to be ashamed of what you can do with one. I shoot them a lot, and consequently, when I switched from a 1911, I have to admit, changing to the trigger, it takes me a few magazines of ammo to get dialed in, and vice versa.
Yeah.
But I'm like you. My wife's gun that she keeps close at hand is a Glock 19.
So the manual of arms is so simple for somebody
Yeah,
that's not,
it's pretty
not
straightforward.
well trained.
And it's a great line, and I didn't originate it, but I somewhat use it. If you treat your gun the way you treat your lawnmower, buy a Glock. From a maintenance standpoint, these things are pretty reliable.
Yeah.
So I think you hit a home run. I think I'm going to guess that there's a plan that as time goes on, your efforts with Glocks are going to probably grow as far as accessories and parts. And where do you kind of see the Glock market going?
Oh, I mean, I think it's just going to continue. And, you know, I mean, like I think you said before, you know, maybe by Gen 7 that they're going to have Glock perfected.
Yeah,
so I'm sure there's going to be you know, a Gen 6, etc.
Yeah, I tell people
down
the
the
Gen
road.
5 Glock, in my opinion, is the best Glock they've ever made. It's a really, really good pistol. And as I told my buddies at Glock, you know, by the time you guys get to Gen 7, you will have perfection.
Yeah.
But good guns. I kind of think the future for Wilson Combat and polymer frame guns, and certainly you got to address the Glock because it is. I tell people it's not the 800-pound girl in the room; it's the 8,000-pound girl in the room.
Oh, yeah.
If you're not dealing with Glocks, you're behind the power curve.
Can't appreciate the visit. Thanks for listening in, folks.